So knees together, feet together, hands behind the thighs, make a nice C with the spine, and then come down nice and slow. And we're going to do the knees please series. Walk your feet towards your seat, knees together, feet together. We're going to cross that right leg nice and tight over the left leg. Fire up your feet, fire up your legs, and see if you can find a neutral pelvis where the pubic bone and the hip bones are level. Chances are you're going to imprint, but maybe you can do it keeping the hip bones equal distance from the floor, equal distance from the top and bottom of the mat. You could always keep your foot there. If you want a little bit more stretch, I can grab you a block and you can put your foot on a block. You could use a strap behind your thighs, or you could interlace your fingers behind your thighs. Right hand on top of left as we come into sleepy cow pose. Checking in with the shoulders and making sure the shoulder heads are not popping up. But just like we did when we were doing those shoulder push-ups, that we pull the arm bones just that right amount into the shoulder sockets so that we can relax the trapezius muscles by melting the shoulder heads to the floor and lifting the armpits towards the sky. Does anybody need a strap? So here, what's really nice is bring the foot down, give yourself some space, and just cross it a little bit if you can. Not forcing it, but just that little crossing, because you can get gentle T-band. Does that feel good? Yep. Nice. How's your pelvis these days? Yeah, it's getting grouchy, eh? It seems like a Yeah. Yeah, it's sore. It's just kind of work. Yeah, if it's too much, I can show you how to do all this sitting on your butt, but we're not going to do a huge long series, but if you need it, I can do this whole series on your butt. What's that? Lock, you got it. Anybody else need a prop? And then go to the core, you'll skip the core part. Your option is to stay here or move into number 4 without pulling it in, or you can put your foot on the wall, which is really nice. So from here, we want to really memorize a neutral neck, okay? So our ears are over our shoulders. We've got a nice spacing between our chin and our sternum. If we were to close our eyes and open our eyes, we'd be looking straight up at the ceiling, not down towards our knees and not up towards the wall behind us. We're going to release our hands. We're going to bring our hands to the floor, and we're going to try and hold our legs where they are. The trick here is that the shoulders don't move and that the neck doesn't change. We're going to exhale to pull the thighs in closer to our belly, and we're going to inhale to take the thighs further away from our belly. Exhale to pull the legs in, inhale to take the legs away. Let's really work on finding our down dog arms. So it's the same solid, stable arms as down dogs. Fingers can be together or spread. We're pushing into all 10 fingertips. We're pushing into the entire circumference of the palms. Inner wrist, outer wrist, forearms, elbows, upper arms, and shoulders are all rooting. Keep those feet super active. If you know what a concrete foot is, where your toes are active and there's no wrinkles in your heels, see if you can find that foot. Let's just do 3 more. And then when those 3 are done, you're going to take that left heel down in line with the left sit bone. You're going to slide the right ankle to the right until that right ankle hooks on the outside of the left knee. Now really see if you can find that neutral pelvis here, pubic bone, hip bones level, and work that outer right knee away from you. One day we'll be able to do this without imprinting the low back, which is great, but for the time being, if you imprint, no problem. Just think about keeping the hip bones equal distance from the floor, equal distance from the armpits. If you want less of a stretch, you walk the left foot away from you. A little bit more, you walk the left foot to you. Wee bit more, you can put your foot on a block and really think actively working the legs away from you. You can put a strap behind the left thigh, or you can interlace your fingers behind that left thigh. Either way, I want you to make sure that your shoulders are even and relaxed. Remember that you can inject the arm bones to relax the shoulder heads to the earth. Strap, you got it. So the trick here is not to actually pull the legs to you, it's to create resistance of taking the legs away from you. When you find that action of taking the legs away from you, then you can start to pull the legs to you without losing the action of the legs moving away from you. Particularly finding that outer right knee and moving the outer right knee away from the wall behind you. Take the pubic bone away from the navel and take your sit bones away from you. Sweet. So if you want to go a little deeper, and we can slide this back into here. And then if you want more, you flex that foot. Yeah, and the big trick is to push and lean with that knee, and this is great prep. And you can do this sitting as well, right? So if you want to start to do some longer holds, sometimes it's nice to do it like this, right? Shoulder heads back, or on bolsters. Stephen, of course, doesn't own bolsters, so he doesn't have to work as hard. So keep, if you wanted a tiny bit more, play with this just a bit, you can flex that foot. Keep the heel down if you wanted more. And lift the sole if you want, you don't have to. Feel those hip bones equal distance from the floor, and maybe you could even start to pull those femurs, those thigh bones, back into the hip socket. So really nail down those hips, don't let them move, and then think about this knee coming to me. Yeah, just a wee bit, good. And let's just go 5 more breaths here. You guys get to do the shortened version of the knees, please, because I promised it for Ray's mom. I'm more likely to do it if it's not 20 minutes long. And then once those breaths are complete for you, you're going to release your fingers. You're going to let that left foot float down to the floor. And we're just going to pause there in number 4 pose with the neutral pelvis and let the blood and oxygen flush the joints. Have your fingers on your hip bones. You could even have one finger on the pubic bone if you really want to creep the pelvis. Draw the right knee towards your navel. Uncross the right leg, making sure you're pivoting at the hip and not the knee, and see if you can straighten out that right leg. Good. We're going to interlace our fingers behind the right thigh. We're going to think about moving the thigh away from us, and just the secondary reaction is to pull the leg to you. So it's not about actually bringing the leg closer and bending your elbows. I want your arms straight, and I want the leg pulling the arms out of the shoulder socket, but I want the arms pulling the legs and the arms back into the shoulder sockets. Remember that little injection of the arm bones to release the neck and shoulders. We're going to point and flex that right foot. And if you're able to keep neutral pelvis and a straight right leg, then feel free to straighten out the left leg. But if you lose the right leg, or you imprint the low back, or the right hip bone drops to the floor, go back to a bent left knee. Nothing should tug into your back. If it tugs into your back, then bend one or both knees. Let's point the toe and let's draw big, slow circles with that foot. If your shoulder's fatigued, you can always put your elbows on the floor. Try not to move the leg and try and keep your knee pointing straight over the crown. Change direction with your circles. Stopping with the circles, we're going to flex the foot so the sole of the foot is flat. Big toe mounds, baby toe mounds level. We're going to curl the toes like we're holding onto a pencil. We're going to point the foot like a dancer, and then we're going to flip just the toes back to us. We're going to flex the foot. We're going to curl the toes. We're going to point the foot, and we're going to flip the toes like a dancer. We're going to keep the toes just as active as we have them, but we're going to flex the foot till the foot is flat and there's no wrinkles in our heels. We want to keep those hip bones equal distance from the floor, and the action here is to really root the thigh into the hands, and then we're just going to take that right leg over the left leg, just a wee little bit. Now visualize you're karate chopping that right heel into a wall, and then pull that entire right leg back into the hip socket. It's front thigh to back thigh, and it's calf to shin. Nice deep, full breaths. And then from here, we're going to bring that right leg back to center. Remember, if we want to do a little bit less, we can bend one or both knees. We're going to release that leg. We're going to keep our upper arms on the floor. We're going to bring our hands onto our pelvis and try and keep a nice neutral pelvis as we hold that right leg there. And then slow as molasses, we're going to lower that right leg to the floor. Really taking our time. Remember to make it a little easier, left leg bends, and still you could always bend the right leg. Listen to your body, no tugging into your back, and neutral pelvis is your priority. When that right heel hits the floor, tap the right heel to the floor and then lift it the smallest amount possible. Make sure the neck and the shoulders are still relaxed and ideally pelvis is level. We're then going to visualize a ball underneath our heel, the smallest ball we could muster. So maybe it's a golf ball, maybe it's a tennis ball, but ideally it's a marble. We're going to exhale to drag that ball towards the right sit bone. And then we're going to inhale to drag that ball away from the right sit bone. So the idea here is that the heel is not lifting to the floor away from the floor, but it's ideally staying that same distance from the floor. We want the ankle, the knee, and the hip in a straight line, and we want them bending in that straight line. So bending the knee, heel coming towards the sit bone, and then straightening leg, heel going away from the sit bone. Noticing if the knee goes out and the ankle goes in and resisting that. Sometimes it helps to visualize a block between your thighs and your feet. Your inner thighs are dropping the block. Your outer thighs are squeezing the block. Inner heels are dropping the block. Outer heels are squeezing the block. Let's do 2 more and then straighten our leg to hold. And then once you've straightened to hold, try and keep your neutral pelvis, bend one or both knees if you need to, and then slow as molasses, bring that right leg all the way back up, just as slow as you went down ideally, and then bend the right knee, keep the ankle, the knee, and the hip in line unless you're Nicole. Interlace your fingers, right hand on top of left over that right shin, and pull that right leg into you. Press through the sole of the foot, sit your right butt down into a chair, and lift your thigh and your chin up into your hands. If you want to go deeper, you can straighten out that left leg, fire up both sets of feet. Nice, deep, full breaths. Yeah, right there. And then think about sitting this into me. Yeah, and then ankle out one more time. Very good. You feel that, eh? Just a couple more breaths here. Let's just see if we can bring this ankle out just a little bit more too. There we go. And then release. Let that right foot come onto the floor. Bend both knees. Walk both feet back towards you. Bring the knees and the feet together. We're going to cross that left leg nice and tight over the right. Keep your hip bones equal distance from the floor, equal distance from the top and bottom of the mat. So this is a great option. You want less, you slide the foot away from you. You want a little bit more, you can put your foot on a block and have it closer or further away from you. You could use a strap behind your thighs, or you could interlace your fingers, left hand on top of right behind the thighs. Fire up your feet and try and find those solid feet where the toes are active and there's no wrinkles in your heels. And then find the resistance. Pubic bone is moving away from you, sit bones are moving away from your belly button, and you're going to pull down with the hands as the legs lift up. Front thigh to back thigh, calf to shin. So even if your foot is on the floor, you can think about moving those legs away from you and activating the calf muscles. If anybody needs a prop they don't have, just let me know. Nice deep, full belly breaths. Check in with those shoulders. We don't want any shoulder heads popping forward. We want to inject the arm bones to release those shoulder heads to the floor. And then making sure we're maintaining that neutral neck, especially as we go into the core. We don't want to have it so that if we closed our eyes and open our eyes, we're looking up or down. We want to be looking straight up at the sky, ears directly over the shoulders. Let's take 3 more breaths just like this, and then we're going to release our arms down beside us, fingers and palms rooting into the floor. Keep the action of the feet and try and keep your legs where they are. Moving towards the ears. You're trying to get your hip flexors and your butt as far away from your fingers and your wrists as you can. Then find your ribs. Think floating ribs to one another and lift those floating ribs back up into the body. And then keep those connections staying either here in puppy or gradually making your way into a down dog without losing the shoulders. Let's try and find this just a tiny bit low. Very good, nice. So you're doing a little bit bendy here, so bend your knees more. Yeah. And then take shoulders to the ankles. There you go. Oh. Better to keep the shoulders straight. So I'm going to take this up. There you go. Keep those knees nice and bent. Remember, 50% of what you normally do with minute you rest, you rest. This is so nice. Lots of space. Hey? Is it feeling okay?
I don't want to get into it.
What's that?
I don't want to get into it.
Good point. Stay!
Don't